Hey everyone, welcome back to Give Yourself a Raise. As I am embarking on a new investment opportunity in the midterm rental space, I decided it would be a good idea to have a few travel professionals on to give some input on what's important to them when looking for housing. So, I have Jessica and Eva on to help share their experiences in this market. Hey everyone, we have Jessica and Eva on here today to talk to us a little bit about the travel professional side. As I am looking to add a rental property, doing midterm living to my portfolio, I figure I would get some input from the other side, the people renting the midterm living out. So I will start with you, Jessica. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your travel assignments?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Jessica, and I am a physical therapist. My home base is at Cleveland Clinic Rehab Hospital in Akron, Ohio. And I do travel physical therapy as kind of an intermittent assignment. So I'll take an assignment pretty much once a year, kind of travel, go somewhere. I've done 2 assignments, one in Charlotte, North Carolina, and one in Tucson, Arizona. So that's kind of how I fit traveling into my home base. I have a PRN job here in Akron that I work most of the time, and they let me have the flexibility to go do a travel assignment and then come back and keep working here.
Awesome. So Eva, what is your experience with travel professionals?
I am a nurse, and I'm traveling not really out of one location particularly, but I started last year, and I've been to DC, Florida, and then now I'm in Cleveland. I use my parents as I use their address as my tax home, and I will kind of store things there. Not really so much. I pretty much take all my stuff with me when I go around. And yeah, I've been on, I guess, 4 contracts so far.
Awesome. Well, let's start with how much does the housing situation really dictate your selection when picking a travel assignment? Go ahead, Jessica, start with you.
Sure. Housing doesn't really dictate picking my assignment. Usually I pick my assignment based on where I want to go, maybe what I want to explore, a place I haven't been, and then as well as maybe the pay package that's involved. And housing is usually more of after the after part of when I've picked an assignment.
Awesome. Eva, what about you?
I have a couple. I mean, I would say the same. I'd say kind of like the first couple, the first thing I sort of look at is where I want to go and what the kind of payment is. But it does have a huge effect. I feel like if I know that I'm going to have lots of options or something that's going to fit well with what I'm looking for as far as where I'm going to live, that definitely makes the whole traveling things kind of seamless and a lot more pleasant.
Right. So as far as the housing stipend goes, have both of you taken the stipend every time, or have you used an agency to place you with housing? Jessica?
I take the housing stipend and find my own, typically just so I have a little more flexibility and say in where I'm going to be. And if I'm able to find more affordable housing than what they would have put me in, I'm able to save a little bit of money that way.
Awesome. Eva?
Yeah, I pocket the stipend as well.
Awesome. All right. So when you are looking for housing, what is most important to you? Is it the lease term, your privacy, distance to the job, your amenities, affordability, etc., anything like that? What is the most important things to you when looking for housing? Jessica?
Yeah, all of those things that you mentioned are very important. Pricing is definitely important to me. I want to be able to save as much money as I can while traveling, but also location, because I'm only going to be traveling there usually for about 3 months at a time. I'm looking to really get involved with the area, explore what it has to offer, be close to activities or sporting events or leagues and things like that, as well as close to my job because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time commuting.
All right, Eva.
Yeah, I agree that I really look at everything. I typically prioritize like safety and privacy over personally for me over price. I like to make sure that something I'm living somewhere safe, and then um, I get a little weird about like having roommates and stuff, so I'm willing to pay a little bit more if I know that I have like a good amount of privacy or security wherever I'm living.
Okay, awesome. So when you do look for housing, what have been the most successful sources in order to find housing? Jessica?
Great question. Probably one of the most successful things for me has been Facebook, especially in a lot of the bigger cities like Tucson, Charlotte. They have Facebook housing pages, and people are posting on their places that they have for rent or things like that. I also used a villa, which was really good. I think those are probably my top two, but just fair warning, make sure you screen your Facebook properties because there are a lot of scams out there. So maybe not as secure, but there's a lot of options on Facebook to at least get started.
All right. Eva?
I've used mostly Furnish Finder, and then I've also used Zillow a little bit. I've kind of dabbled with Craigslist, but yeah, there's lots of scams, and it's just I don't know. I have not had any success off of Craigslist, but Furnish Finder is probably like my go-to to just sort of get a feel for what's available, and then sometimes I'll look at Zillow.
Yeah, I know Furnish Finder is popular. I also use Airbnb a little bit. I never booked anything through there, but definitely had some good conversations, like some good potentials, but never actually booked one through there.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Have either of you traveled with pets on any travel assignment?
Not me.
No? All right, so we can skip right over that one. Well, I guess I could ask any of your friends that you know that have traveled with pets.
Jessica, do you know anyone?
Yeah, one of my friends has traveled with a dog, and it was just extra. It was extra to have a pet fee. We went to a place where dogs were friendly on lots of hikings and trails. So I think that was a bit of something she thought about, somewhere where the dog could have a lot of outside space. And finding a pet friendly place was obviously important to her.
Yeah. I spoke to a girl while I was looking for housing who she had 2 dogs, and I think her like biggest obstacle was the fact. Sorry, can you hear me? I feel like you can't hear me.
I got you.
Her obstacle was the fact that she had 2 dogs. So I think like a lot of places will say like, oh, one dog is fine, or one cat, one animal is fine. But she ran into trouble having multiple animals. So that's one thing I do know.
Okay. Yeah. So as far as when looking for housing, what have been some of your biggest hurdles when looking for housing, and what would you expect from a landlord, like going into it, to avoid certain things that you've had issues with, if any? Jessica?
Biggest hurdle. The biggest hurdle, I think, is when you're trying to travel somewhere you haven't been there yet. You don't know what the area is like. You don't know. There's just a lot of unknowns. So the biggest hurdle is just knowing who and what you can trust. So I think when traveling distances, getting over that hurdle, if like using Furnish Finder, something that's reputable, I think can really help combat those fears.
Yeah. Yeah, I I agree with like not knowing what you're going into. It can be, that's why like, yeah, if you want to use something like Craigslist or Facebook, you got to do your background check and make sure it's legitimate, because you don't want to show up somewhere and then not have anywhere to live. The other thing that that I really like is when, or I guess a hurdle, when I've contacted people and they don't, and I hear nothing. So like if I'm waiting and then, I mean, there's lots of stuff out there, but it'd be nice if someone could even just be like, hey, I'm already booked up, like I'm not available. That would be super helpful, so that I'm not like checking back with places that maybe I'll hear from 2 months later when I've already signed a lease somewhere else. So having people be super communicative, even if it's not a good fit or whatever, that's super helpful for me. And it just keeps things going. I just don't like waiting. And a lot of travel housing is very last minute as well, because your contracts are pretty last minute. So the quicker and better people can get back to you and be communicative is really, really helpful.
All right. So pretty much you want, from my side, to be on the, messaging back quickly, just getting a response back so you know what's going on. That's like pretty much the biggest help.
Yeah, I mean, like, everybody's got lots of life to live, so it's not like I'm waiting like the day of or anything, but like, within like a couple business days is like pretty reasonable, I'd say.
All right. Have either of you done travel assignments pre-pandemic, and what has been the differences, if so? Jessica?
Yeah, I've done 2 assignments. One was pretty much right before the pandemic, the one in North Carolina. And then the second one was post-pandemic in Arizona. I didn't do any during the pandemic. And biggest difference between the two, I don't know if there's been a really big difference, besides having to wear a mask. As far as housing goes, yeah, I don't know that there's been any huge difference as far as housing goes between the two.
Eva?
I did not take any travel assignments before the pandemic, so we can't really compare. I do know that the rates are much higher now in general. It seems like they've just been like kind of bumped up, and probably will be staying like bumped up a good amount for good, hopefully.
Yeah. So yeah, rates definitely I've noticed have gotten higher on, well, both sides, from the payment side of which you're getting paid and from what properties, are asking for rent. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's close this out with your worst travel story. What has been the biggest issue you've had when traveling? Jessica?
Oh, mine's easy. When I went to Arizona, we found a listing through Facebook, and we paid and wired money. And when we got there, the house was under construction and was a complete scam. So we had nowhere to live when we first got there. So we just booked an Airbnb for a week and tried to find housing, but it was in the middle of gemstone season in Tucson, Arizona, which is a month-long international like gemstone show. So there was nothing available for like a month. So my friend and I split a studio at like 400 square feet place for like a month. And then we were finally able to move into a second property. But yeah, that was definitely not fun. We learned a lot about how to look for housing from afar.
So where did you source that housing from?
Facebook, just a Facebook page in Tucson.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Eva?
I've not had knock on wood, good Lord, I've not had an experience like that. I've heard of other people having just that kind of qualm. It just sounds terrible. But for me, it would probably be when I went to Florida, which I loved, even though people have lots of different traveling experiences in Florida, I loved it so much. And I loved where I lived. Even with, I got there and, like the landlord never told me this. And I honestly think if he had, it would have been fine. I think he didn't tell me on purpose. But my side of the building was getting worked on, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I worked nights and in the morning, and it was not only was it getting worked on the outside of the building, but I swear to you, the property directly above me was renovating, mm-hmm. and during the day, it literally sounded like it was in my room, like a drill, like the super high power drills going off. Like it just sounded like it was right next to me, and I could there was no getting around it. Like no earplugs or anything in the world would have. Like it was so bad, and I was like, I would be it'd be the middle of the day and I would just be like crying and screaming, and it was awful. But I still loved it down there. I loved where I lived. It just, every now and then there were a couple of days where I'd go up and be like, hey, is there anything else you can do right now that like won't make that much noise? Like, I've not slept a wink. I've been working 3 nights in a row. It's just terrible. So that's another thing. Like, just, if construction is happening, that's life, but just let people know. I don't know. It was so bad.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let them know what they're moving into. Yes.
Yeah, I would say so.
Definitely. All right. So I do appreciate you both coming on. Is there any is there any closing thoughts that you have that I may have missed that you would like to add to this conversation? Jessica?
I think these were all very good questions. I think something to add is just the variety of housing that is available for travel professionals. It can be anything from shared housing, like a room in a house, to somebody's own place. So there are a lot of options as far as how to do it, but taking into account some of those hot kind of topics that are important to travelers, such as like offering a short-term lease, good privacy, even if it's a shared home, having doors that lock so you can lock your door for any other roommates that are in the house, distance to amenities or parks or jobs and things like that. So I think with housing, people can be pretty creative if they kind of keep some of those important factors into their decision making.
Awesome. Eva?
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. And then I think we were speaking when you first came up to me about the Zoom here. One of the things that, well, it's not even just like on purpose, but I always get like, I'm more attracted to listings that are like of higher quality. So with nice pictures and lots of information and stuff, that will like grab me much quicker than something that looks like it was kind of like, half-assed and people don't care as much, because, you got to move somewhere where your landlord cares about you and cares about your safety. So
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I think I'm going to close this off and we'll post this up to my YouTube channel.